Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, so that is the program. So, I want to welcome everybody. If I can ask you guys to repost this, it will be very much appreciated. Repost the space, and let's do this. So, Chennai, if you can, greet our listeners, and let's get into this.
Hi guys. Thank you for having me. So what I wanted to say is today I just thought, because at some point I also feel like we are going, it's like a merry-go-round, the same people like "Matakadir, tadirwa, ne uyu, ne uyu, ne uyu," and then we discover new things that that they have taken from us. So what I thought we could do as well is if I've shared a document in the comments,
Right. I'm going to pin
which
it right there.
I recently came across, and I would, it's a very simple document to follow, but it will really spell out a lot of things that I think we all really could do with reading and understanding and just knowing for ourselves, because these are some of the organizations have done all this research for us, and it shouldn't be in vain. And I think the first point of call is that us, the Zimbabweans, we have a vested interest enough to actually read and understand their analysis, understand where how we are, where we are, and the situation that we find ourselves in. I think, yeah. So please read it. I highly, highly, highly recommend. A lot of what I will share today is literally taken from this document. So please read it. So one of the things that that we need to kind of highlight and just be open about is the whole cartel situation that is happening in Zimbabwe. The role not just of Mnangagwa, but he has recruited his wife, his children. They are all in on this mess. They are all part of this mafia. I've talked about what happened in 2017 with the lithium, the Moti files, where this guy, was actually paying Emerson Mnangagwa Jr. a consultancy fee for whatever reason, just to try and keep the family happy. And so he's created these like mini me's that are bent on continuing the legacy of crime against the people of Zimbabwe. And you can trace their sticky fingers in mining, in agriculture, is in just about every productive sector in Zimbabwe. And what I found very interesting is that there are three things that will never change under the rulership of a corrupt government. If you just keep these things in mind, it will help when it comes to evaluating any policy, whether vataura kuti hanzi we are going to de-dollarize, kana kuti vataura kuti we are going to introduce a new currency, gold-backed currency, whatever policy, whether vataura to command agriculture, whatever they say, there are three things that will never change. And they will never change those three things because these things have to be present in order for them to further their agenda of crime and corruption and power. Number one, unstable economy. Zvinofanira kutoita messy and chaotic. There is no intention on the part of Mnangagwa, on the part of the ZANU-PF government in the last 45 years, kuti economy yedu inatsofamba zvinhu zviite stable, zvibude pajekerere. That is not, we only see, if you look at our history, It's only in the time just after independence, I think maybe up to 1985, and then in the time here, the brief period of the GNU, that our country experienced any form of economic stability. Because if there is no chaos, if people are not desperate, then they cannot continue to loot, they cannot continue to oppress, and they will have to become accountable. So there is no appetite, and this has been proven now by those that have done the analysis, that we will always have an unstable macroeconomy by design, by intent. The second thing is the dependence on the economy is too heavily dependent on finite elements such as agriculture and mining. And there's no appetite to move that mining into beneficiation or any type of services industry. And they have to keep that mining infrastructured in a certain way. So we all know that the country relies on gold. But ndikoko mashurugwi, makorokoza, no intention to bring some kind of normalcy or formalization or value addition, even health and safety, any form of tracking of gold. There is no interest in doing that. It has to be done in such a way that you have to be willing and you have to be hustling. It's a hustle economy. You can't you go, and as much as I'm sure what is happening in Botswana with their diamonds, that they are trying to even do more. But if you look at the way it's infrastructure, order, you see how is tracked, what is being produced. And the president can say, but I can see, Kutiko, we are not selling, but we are producing. What's going on? Because it's transparent, it's traceable. They've even introduced like AI capability to help with their diamond sector. And where are we? We're still selling our gold like under a bridge, behind a tree in Chiadzwa. I see, you look at the monetary policy statement, is telling you kuti ndo yakabata nyika. But there's no interest to protect or to bring any more security into that sector. And the same with agriculture. We continue to promote the informal sector, but it's never enough that it actually then influences any form of income mobility. We tried to see a bit of that with tobacco and contract farming, but still the system is not designed for things to flourish. We also have our third problem, which is the state is too prominent, in the sense that they are our biggest customer is the state. Our is the biggest hand in everything. And this is designed, Kudichi, to promote what I will go into next, which are the relationships of how of positioning. So first, you have to make sure that the state has got its you create state institutions. Most of these are actually even you find that the boards is appointed by the president, or him or his close appointed person is the board chair, or sits, or they sit on the board. And we've really seen this, we've seen since 1980. There was a book or a paper that was written by, I think, Gordon Moy, where he talks about patronage and how people were being assigned to state-owned institutions, to the boards, based on patronage politics, based on who is important in ZANU PF, therefore, and which are the important boards when it comes to state-owned institutions, and influencing who is on that board. So we see that I tried to run a report to see how many state institutions there are in Zimbabwe, but you cannot give me a sector in Zimbabwe that is not predominantly um, positioned whereby it's predominantly state owned. And for a private sector to be present, they have to be in cahoots with the state. It's very difficult to have an independent private sector, a completely independent private sector institution. And I think maybe we can speak of Econet, and how even for them to get their first license, it was so difficult because they were just too independent. It was unheard of to have that kind of model of having a prominent player within the market being 100% private without any interest or shareholding from the state. So these are your three elements that have been designed to promote cartel behavior in Zimbabwe. And they, as long as we have the ZANU PF government in place, they will never change them, because to change them would be to take money out of their own mouths, to take bread out of their own mouths. There is no appetite.
Right.
And
Can I, the third one, how does the third one
uh,
fit with the issue of Matendas?
yes, well, I'm coming to that because remember I
All right.
said the third one. I'll explain about these three relationships that you can find, right? So at a very high level, you have what they call private sector collusive relationships, right? So I have a private sector company, you have a private sector company. We say, okay, why don't we bring our resources together and we can go and so we'll be we will be able to put in the strongest bid and deliver a certain whatever it is tender. And it's a private sector relationship, right? I mention this because it's not necessarily a good thing all the time, because you can then have like here in I know in the UK they have anti-competition trust laws, which are really designed to stop or to minimize or to mitigate against this type of collusive relationships, because then you can have monopolistic tendencies, or you have a group of individuals controlling a big part of the economy, which introduces its own risks. So these are some of the things that in developed countries, they have things like anti-competition trust laws that are designed to protect the economy against these private sector collusive relationships. So that's one. You also then have public official self enrichment, right? So this is where an individual who is also a public official then awards themselves certain tenders so that they get rich or whatever, rich quickly, and because they're a public official, they anticipate being able to get away with it based on the type of transparency or the type of state that this transaction is happening under, in terms of the judiciary or whatever. Or yeah, so that's a public official sovereign. Or they have private and public collusions, and this is what we see most commonly in Zimbabwe, where they would invite different private individuals who will front the deal, but are being promoted or propelled by public sector officials who have the power to ensure that that deal goes through. And this is the most common model in Zimbabwe. So you will find, like, for instance, this morning I posted on my handle an individual called Delish, who has been involved in Geopomona, who has been involved in different deals where the investigative journalists have found that actually he is a key partner or a close acquaintance to the Mnangagwa twins.
And this is Musuguru family.
Mm, you see now. So you have kind of these private sector individuals who, and what usually that this will result in is you may have, in the end, it can be very monopolistic, because once they are successful, whether let's say it's Nasman Mapiwa tender a road, Zvaita, you now become the one the go-to. So even if not just the twins, somebody else wants in on a deal, they'll be like, okay, I'll talk to this person because this person is supported by the twins, and then we'll all come together, and then we get the next road. So now suddenly they're a big construction company when they really were not anything to begin with. And then on the point of the state as the main business, the report I've just posted actually says that every one out of $2 spent in Zimbabwe is from government. It's very abnormal, because we are not private sector led. We are limited, then it means in terms of innovation we are not open to bringing in new market entrants. The state itself is its own customer, is its own business. So that already limits our potential for revenue generation. It means 50% of the time we're not likely to be able to even get any form of corporate tax, because it's the government. So in the end, the government revenue base is too narrow. They are now focusing just on income tax. Magu tax sewa chewing gum allowance. Magu tax sewa 2%. Magu tax one, because the pocket that the state relies on for revenue in terms of taxation is only 50% of the money that is being moved around in the economy, because the other 50% is just government business. The government becomes its own customer and its own producer or whatever. So that really, it doesn't stimulate growth in an economy in any case. But also it means kuti kana uchitoda vemafia ana dzvi vanotoziva kuti kana uchida unatsoti dzvi unotoenda unopinda nevanhu vemugovernment, because ndokwazviri kuitika. You don't need to be innovative. You don't need to be competitive. You just need to be closely linked to the government.
Connected.
That's the Zimbabwean dream right now. You don't have even to be the cleverest or the most educated or the most innovative. You don't have to be an inventor. You just have to be close to the government
Lusaka zitare
at
kuti
least 50% of the time.
hanzaka ningi vakaimporta zita rekuti tenderpreneur. Because Tagwira yakati, if you are not a tenderpreneur, I don't know what you are
Mhm.
doing in Zimbabwe.
Akatokuze chokwadi akatotaura chokwadi chake, akatoshaya kuti munhu, we are training doctors and pilots, and we've got how many tertiary institutions in Zimbabwe, and then someone is saying if you are not a entrepreneur chitongo wakatosara hapana zvauri. That is killing. It's no longer about innovation. It's no longer about the best ideas. It's just about you know who you know in government, and I guess what you're willing to do. So then the other thing that I mean, I was quite astonished looking at this, because there's a chart that I took a photo of and posted on my timeline, if I can just find it, which is looking at property rights and in terms of agricultural land. If you start from 1980, and this goes back again to state ownership. In 1980, tisu tapinda independence, right? We were just, maybe I will say, for argument's sake, let's say 45% yeah, common hold and state owned property. And the remaining, oh,
Do you mean black ownership or ownership as a whole?
I'm talking about in terms of property rights. So who owned the land, right? So state owned land was just over 40% in 1980. Yeah. And the remaining was freehold.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you come into now 2020, and I'm sure after 2023 is even worse because, like, who even knows what's going on? We have nearly the same, over 40% state owned. But now, in terms of freeholds, we have almost just maybe 20% or less is freehold property. So all these things that they're saying that, oh, chakupai my title deeds, tozo my title deeds, you know, it's just something like a song, like maybe like a, I don't know, like a song that you just sing so often, nongopinda umusoro mako woimba, but you don't mean the, you don't mean the words, you don't mean it. Because if they did, we should actually be seeing, right, an increase of freehold, but we've actually reduced a lot of our property now in agriculture is either on leasehold or state owned. Story back to France, because if you think about the land issue being the whole thing around independence and how we want to move away from minority ownership of property of arable land, blah blah. But where are we now? Because we know there are deals that they've said which Tagre is chairing the commission. It's so messy because they're saying that you're not given a title deed, you're given a loan, which you pay off over so many years. And in that time, we don't know, like, is that bankable? The people that they're giving these loans to, can they afford? And still, it doesn't address the issue for majority, which is, the peasant, those very small scale farmers. It doesn't really address their situation for most intents and purposes. So this is this is where we are under the ZANU PF cartel, which has left majority of citizens in poverty. We've been hovering around um, 60 to 70% living in extreme poverty. Over 2 million, I think it was by two, it says here in 2 million in 2019. More than a quarter of rural citizens are food insecure. Don't forget, this particular report was done, like, sort of even during COVID in 2020. So we've since had other phenomena. We had the El Nino phenomena and the drought that brought, um, and the other phenomenon that we've had that have had an impact on agriculture. So my expectation is that those figures are far worse than what is even presented in this report. So that is the situation. I can pause here for some questions, and then I'll finish off with some of the points I wanted to cover later, Uncle Jed.
Right. Thank you very much, for that. Just for those that may not understand some of the terms that you were, referring to. Kana mshiti freehold murikuedza kurevei?
Freehold ndeyekuti iyo ndeyekuti ndeyako, like that's, I guess that's the best way of saying it. Like, you have the title to that property, it's your asset, your secured asset. You can bank it, you can go and take a loan and say, I hold the title deeds to this property. That is it's yours in its entirety. If it's leasehold, it means that if somebody else owns it, but you do have some rights over. You have a leasehold right. You have some kind of a lease over it, right? So, and the lease doesn't necessarily mean that you're paying every month or whatever, but you do not hold the title. It is not a bankable asset as such. If it's state owned, it's state owned. If it's common property, then I guess ndoma ningrini anasabuk, where it belongs to the community or something like this, right? I think that's the simplest way to define.
So when we speak about the initiative that is there being led by Tagwire, are you saying that the transition to the freehold is going to take longer as a result of the loan element that has been introduced?
Uncle Jed, as far as I'm aware, I'm not entirely convinced that this will is a bankable freehold situation that we have here. I do not believe that the legal provisions have been provided for, because if we already have a law that says all land chakadaro chakadaro belongs to the state or whatever, and then what they're trying to say now is you're going to be given a loan where you take some years or whatever to pay it back, and then but there's no legal provision that has been put in place to supersede what is there already. Do you see what I mean? So if we have a law that is saying this is the situation, which I will find and bring up, we're saying this is the situation, all the land belongs to the state, and blah, blah, blah. It's not enough for Tagbire to just come and make a pronouncement that this is, I haven't seen any new legal provisions that replace the one that exists today. So does that then become truly bankable? So in other words, yeah, if I was to ask you, Uncle Jet, ndini chenai ndauya nawo ema-farms angu iwayo ma-A1 kana kuti machii anga chitauro, yanzi ndichazopiwa egweta yangu, ndoya kwamuri Uncle Jet, ndoti Uncle Jet, ndiri kutsvagawo mari zvezvizvi, ndoda kuzvitengera mota, ndogona but handina imba or anything, but ndine farm rangu A1 atanzi tichazopiwa ma-title deeds. Can you give me that your money based on that? Would you be
Yeah,
happy
not
to make
really.
that exchange?
Nah, 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 nah. Not really. Not really.
Tinotosaindirana here and munotoona kuti because you are not you are not convinced. So it's the same thing when we say like the bank is going to have to think like, okay, so I now have to understand kuti saka pazvanzi muchapiwa loan, saka is it, where is it clear legally? Where do we stand with that? Where is the provision? Where is the instrument that has been debated in parliament, ratified and confirmed? Kuti, these farms, they are now entitled. There's now a title to them that is bankable and so on. And I haven't seen it, you know. Um, we've talked about this quite a few times, and the whole thing around pachazvita malonzi, really, a lot of it doesn't even quite make sense. So yeah.
Right. Okay. Mofutitis, have you got any question that you want to pose to Chennai? Whilst you're doing that, can I invite folks that want to pose any questions? Please, if you can come through, we'll give you guys the opportunity to interact and pose the questions that you might be having.
All right. No, Chennai, thank you so much again for that presentation. Now, in that way, a little bit said, poverty. When you were talking about how there's this disorder, deliberate or intentional disorder of poverty, of economic tussles and hassles, kuti zvingogara zvakango things not working okay, and it's deliberate and it's intentional. My question is kuti obviously through your research and what we have seen is these guys, unfortunately, they do not actually invest back in our country. You have talked about so many people having outside these foreign accounts from Mauritius to Dubai to anywhere. right? They seem to actually go out and put this money, which belongs to the Zimbabweans. It doesn't invest in our infrastructure. It doesn't invest in the in the populace of Zimbabweans for the betterment of us. But you are Sanangura kuti that's the intention. Poverty yoyo itori intentional. But then I think you did touch on it. It made me. You did touch on it on the previous submissions, but it made me think then, Kuti, my external players, because they wouldn't do this if they were just on their own and if they were in Zimbabwe. How much do then we have these external cartels? Some of them, they come from different countries that may be dodgy. Even foreign governments, how much complicit are they in keeping then the Zimbabweans poor, and unstable just for their own gain? Because I think this, we can tell that they are doing it for their own gain. Our local, our this leadership that we have in Zimbabwe, but how much complicit then do they work with the external forces as well? Some, who obviously do it for their own gain, but at the leverage of the citizens. And how can my citizens push back? I think you always go for the solution at the end of the day. But because they are not doing it on their own, I just want to know, Kuti, how much help do they get from external forces, and how can we push back?
Okay, so I guess it's two things, right? In terms of external forces. So first of all, you're very right in the sense that none of this money is in the Zimbabwean system, right? There are countries like, for example, African countries like South Africa, and I picked that example deliberately to say there's corruption in South Africa, undeniably. But the difference sometimes is the corruption is circulating in South Africa. At some point, that money is in the bank in South Africa. So because it's kind of kept within the same system, is banked in the system, there is a sort of multiplier comfort level, if you like, right? Where things continue to work. I remember when I first moved and my first job in public sector here in the UK, I worked for a local authority where 10 million pounds was missing, right? Literally. And I thought, yes, kasi ndaburuka bhazi kusiriko ndadzokera ndadzokera kwandabva, because it's corruption nekuba and stuff. It happens. It took us maybe 5-6 years before it was discovered how it had happened. It was contracts and tenders, and people were fired and so on and so forth. But somehow things continued to work. Why did things continue to work? Because that money is still being banked here. The system overall doesn't feel it that there's 10 million that has gone missing, because it's held in a bank account here in the UK and is being used within the same kind of system. But you know that the institution that is missing the 10 million, yes, they'll be suffering. I only say this not to say good corruption is a good thing, but to say good, from the situation that we have in Zimbabwe, particularly around the currency, the liquidity crisis, the inflation, the poverty, shows that the corruption is of a very extractive nature, where it's either I'm going to take that money to South Africa, to Seychelles, to Mauritius, or or I am a foreign government, for example, like China, that I will come in and take advantage of the chaos, do what I got to do, and take my money back to China. Right? I'm not here to invest. I remember the other day we were talking about Manise, and it was not like just a few days later we saw the situation in terms of health and what was happening in Manise, and yet we are being told, Guti, in 6 months potentially they've made 400 million or whatever. But where is that money? It's not being experienced in Zimbabwe. The same with gold. We are digging up everywhere and destroying our climate, destroying our environment. People are dying because of gold, but the gold money is not in Zimbabwe. So external governments benefit where they can come and take advantage of the chaos, increase their own reserves, whether it's gold or lithium or whatever, take that money out and go back with it. I mean, I was astounded when I was looking at at the twins, the Mnangagwa twins situation, to learn that the Geopomona deal, that one of the major partners in that is a Norwegian company. And I said to myself, where was the EU in Zimbabwe? What happened there? You know, how did they allow? And at the time, initially 2020, 21, when this was done, there were still some individuals, I believe, on sanctions, on EU sanctions. So how did that happen, that deal? And did why did the EU almost allow it, knowing the situation that is happening in Zimbabwe? And we will see it even now. We might see even like the British government um, sort of saying, well, you know, we'll come and we'll make business deals in Zimbabwe because it benefits or whatever. You know, they can come in, get what they get to their benefit. And I think this is where the diaspora, we really need to be quite activated, because those countries do have a democracy. And if we actually make our voices loud enough to say, no, you're not signing no deals in Zimbabwe when people are suffering like this, because trust me, those deals do not benefit the Zimbabweans. If you were to do it on a scale of, okay, we sold some blueberries, we've had a deal, we've sold some blueberries to whatever company. If you were to weigh to say the benefits of selling those blueberries, and if we never sold those blueberries, trust me, there's a whole 60% people that are living in extreme poverty that they have not been impacted at all by those blueberries. Their lives has not changed an iota. So we really need to kind of have a clear perspective on this, because some people will make you feel bad and say, "Oh yeah, you know, why are you complaining?" You know, in other countries, if they find out kuti Tesco iri kutenga ma blueberries kuZimbabwe, vanotonoudza Tesco kuti shamani, kana uri kutenga ma blueberries, make sure kuti mari iyoyo iri kuvaka zvipatara. Because iwewe vanhu vemuuk havangangobenefitika vachinakirwa nemablueberries, but mazimbabweans we are suffering. Iyo yemablueberries ndikakuudzai kuti patakapinda mu2023, when we had our elections, there was a loan that we took over as budget, a loan that was done by RBZ to support an individual farmer of blueberries. Maybe ndosaka ndine against nema-blueberries, because this person, an individual farmer, we don't even know who they are from Adam, but the RBZ decided to take over their loan, and they carried on with their business of blueberries. They flourished, and we, the people, whatever couple million that loan was for, we had to pay for it on our budget. That means taking money out of health, taking money out of education to cover a loan for an individual. So this is why I say, like, you know, it sounds, people would want to make it sound like, oh, this is maybe unpatriotic. We should just be happy that someone is coming to buy our blueberries. No, we should demand that, you know, Zimbabwe is for everyone. Because trust me, it's probable that maybe that individual, they're not even keeping that money in Zimbabwe anyway. So there's no benefit to us. Look at our gold, look at our diamonds, look at our lithium.
Chennai, can you explain that in terms of corporate social responsibility? Why, why these companies will be expected to at least have that in, to at least do trading underpinned by corporate social,
Yeah,
responsibility,
because
because
corporate
that takes out, that takes away, this argument that, oh, you are unpatriotic, you don't want, your company, your country, to be benefiting.
Exactly, we look at it and think, well, that's a benefit to the country just because they've bought. But this is where things like fair trade were being introduced, and what have you. Like, this is important here in this country. If I can prove that what by buying these blueberries you've made life worse for someone in Zimbabwe, I can actually take that organization to court here in the UK. It's very possible. So these are some of the things. I mean, there's so many things. We had, I've talked about Sakunda and the Noik deal that happened in 2011. That was kind of, I believe, the birth of Tagire, that gave him his first kind of millions or blank check or whatever it was. And he then sold that contract to Trafigura, the contract that nobody ever saw. Trafigura is an international company. If Trafigura signed a corrupt contract, they should be answerable to that. It's not a Zimbabwean company or whatever. So these are some of the things that we, the citizens, we need to start thinking about, think outside the box. We have an advantage in the fact that a lot of us are in the diaspora. Some of us are even citizens. Okay. We are even citizens in these countries. So we just need to come together in a way that our voice is loud enough.
All right. No, no. Thanks for that, Chennai. I think it always boils down to what is it that we can do about it. Because, yes, it's all these things, and the more the revelations, the more sad it makes you feel. But can we just look in and just fold our hands and say kuti ndo zvavari kuita vanhu vacho vari kutonga nyika. For me, I think at the end of the day, yeah, I think we can do something. And like you rightly said, when people come together with the same ideology, and I don't think this is a political thing. This is the future of us as Zimbabweans. This is the future of us. This is the future of our children. What is it that is going to happen after all this? So I think there is a need, and there is a desperate, urgent need for people to actually put these trivial differences together, and people come together and do, whether they are in diaspora, whether people are on home ground. And thanks to Uncle Jed for these spaces where you putting on citizens together and actions groups. I think this is really, really what we need as Zimbabweans, because it's about time. But no, thanks for that, Chennai, for that. Anyway, so let's put it to the people of Aripa on the speakers. If you've got a question to ask to Chennai, let's just keep it short. Let's just keep it flowing and progressive. So can I start with Jojiri? I think you're the first one.
Sorry, thanks, Titus. I just have about three questions and one like reinforcement of what Chennai said. So the first one is does the report that you just posted also cover on why we continue to pay every year? If you see Panaito monetary policy review or Panaito budget, we continue paying international debt. Like Uncle Jesus, forward you one of these reports, and I got one just across on the internet. It's a bit quite of impromptu. I'll look for it. Where we continue paying international debt, and every year, Mario Noramba Jikwira. At the same time, we continue saying to ourselves, we are now producing and able to pay off that international debt. So would that be another looting avenue that is being used, where not an ordinary Zimbabwean would just question what is international debt? Pazvinongotaurwa mutuli zvinongogumira ikoko, and not even munhu ari kugeto uno kuti mari iri kupi. That's my first question. Then also this whole cartel scheme, we see that we know that money is all money can be traced. Would also that be a point where they fail to revive the banking system in Zimbabwe? Not could it failed, they've intentionally suppressed the banking system so that money is not traced. Because if you hear reports of money that is being deals that are held at the airport, people come in, Monotorwa, return flight to end up airport, any big cash. How do we then trace that cash? We can't trace it. And like you mentioned, Kudi, Mario Inogononge in South Africa, Madira no roa, but Mario in the area in the system. Then last question, Mari Mari Irkuaniga from all these deals. Like we see if it was going to be banked in the Swiss account, for instance, that money would have trace. And if you see the trend, money goes to Mauritius to buy, where money is then banked mostly in gold. Has that also been traced? And how best can are there any international organizations that can be approached to probably put that at a halt and probably stop that? Because as far as this whole trend will continue, Zimbabwe will always be a crime scene where money is washed. And that gold mafia thing was actually an eye open for us to just check how many loopholes do we have. If you can bring a bag of cash, probably like 3 million or 4 million, without being questioned where source of funds, and we are there being put as probably a safe destination or a safe investment country without traceability of money, that raises a big question. Then the last one was just to reinforce on what you've just said on the title deed scheme. In a layman's language, for people to understand, this thing has just been renamed because title deed scheme, what. It is a command paper 2. Tagwire has made money via CBZ, and now they've changed that bank to the in the Afro, what agro, something. The banks it controls. Tagwire's money is going to be made from loan repayment. If you see good command, how many farmers were ripped off? How many farmers complained? Kuti ndatengesa chibage changu but mari yacho yarohwa, and kazhinji kacho panoitika zvima repayment izvo ndo panorohwa currency review, mari iyoyo yobva yatorohwa pasi. That's how Tagwire is making money, and that's why he is so much invested in that thing. You mentioned that is right, Kuti Zwani, freehold has just gone down. Because tichikura vana sekuru vanga ine maprazi, uncles had farms and whatever. We have this farm gone. So on this one, do not be hoodwinked. This scheme is just to whip off those farmers their profits. Murushandira munhu. I will tell you this. After that long period period yataurwa iyi is just to give ample time kuti tizongoti paita currency change, what taita reform, then all that money is wiped off. So how can you go and lease land or give someone, like, how can you go and give someone a title deed for something that is on lease? Mutemo unotaura zve-leasehold. Iwe kutaura zvekuti taunonipa title deed on what basis?
Right.
So there's a conflict there already. There's a question there. And why is it not being propagated by the parliament or the legislative roots that are in the country? Why a certain individual who is also linked to corruption, to corrupt activities, leading that forum? That should raise a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So those three questions, and sorry, I'm not sure if you're noting down, Chennai. Could those, could those be?
I did. I
Sorry.
think
Yeah.
certainly the first one was definitely a question around debt and whether the debt
Mm.
balance is a form of looting. The quick answer is yes. Like I said, we have had debt assumption that has happened in 2023, and I think we had it again. I can't remember when, where suddenly treasury, the Ministry of Finance is like, yeah, we're taking over the debts that have been incurred by RBZ. My debts are RBZ, ndo my treasury bills akapiwa tagwirei ecommand agriculture takambotaura. We've covered those here on this platform. That's one of the debts that was assumed by treasury. So that is a good example to answer your question. We had a situation where we had 19 million for a while in terms of our debt balance, and then one day Mutuli went in, did his budget presentation, and we were now at 21 billion. Like, how did we just
Yeah,
move 2
I
billion?
remember
Like,
that
how are
one. I
you
remember
not
that one.
going to give us an explanation of how that has happened? And then the other thing that has happened as well with our debt is that you look at some of the loans, I've mentioned it on here before. Some of these are also resource backed loans, particularly the ones where we owe China. And we have literally said, look, if we can't pay it back, and China knows that we can't pay it back. And they've said, because we can't pay it back, we now are giving them, some of our assets because we failed to service our loans. Then the other thing that happens is, when it comes to debt, a really good example was with the India Exim Bank, which I think was being used, and I confused the EMA project and the ECA project. Which one is the one for electricity? I can't remember. The hydro,
Dema.
the EMA, the hydroelectric one.
Yes.
And what they did was they set about and said, okay, say for I'm not going to give exact figures because I don't have them in front of me, but say for instance, we're going to give you a loan because the project we calculated is going to cost 14 million. Yeah. We get to the point of now wanting to, we get out given the money, we agree. Takutsvaga contractor, they say you have to use an Indian contractor. That contractor comes back and says, actually, I will do the work, but I'll do it for 20 something million. So then we go back to India, Exim Bank, they increase the loan, but they're increasing the loan so that we pay higher fees than what was calculated at the start of the project. And no one has challenged that to say, can we get, what about if we use a local contractor? Won't we be able to get that cheaper? But of course, no one is interested in doing that because Patrick Vumirana now, yeah. We'll give you 23 million. We go, we get the loan for 23 million. Obvious, panemuna pa 23 yo paneme 1 or 2. Yeah, to famba, someone is pocketed from that. And so we now have this huge loan that cannot be serviced directly from the project is being used on because we will never get a return of that much on that project. But also, what then happens is when that loan money is disbursed, because we still owe China in over here, and we've said we were going to pay them, instead of using that money in the project that we've borrowed it against, we then use it to also pay another project like the Chinese loan for Wange Colliery, or we clear some debts that are owed by the state-owned institutions. If you look at at our Bloom budget, if you look at the debt analysis, it will show you that some of this money that has been borrowed for specific projects has actually gone to pay debts that are outstanding in state-owned institutions, and God knows what we borrowed against and whom we even borrowed from and why we owe that money, right? I'm talking about places like Zenwa, Zenara for roads, and you're like, wow, how we're giving you millions, but what are you using it on, right? So it's a real mess. And yes, the debt balance is being used as well to hide and to facilitate the looting. Then the other thing you were asking about was around traceability, where you were saying, can we trace the money or whatever? And I mean, I don't know. I would have to look to more kind of experts in terms of forensics. But I'm sure we were here earlier on, couple of weeks ago, where we were talking about the findings from the Falcon platform, which discovered 450 million US dollars being moved between the SA Zim corridor. That particular corridor, in terms of moving money, the IMF have estimated at 3 billion is moved in the SA Zim corridor. So that's a lot of money, right? So whether I think it can be traced because like Falcon managed to identify which were the 23 shell companies that were being used to move these monies about. And then your second question, I wrote it down. I can't read my own writing. You said you wanted to know around, did you say something around banking?
Jaziri.
Oh yes, I mentioned Koti Mari Iku, like the money that has been taken out, like for I know the other corridor might be SA, but the common corridor that has been used for this co-op item is the Dubai corridor, where we find most money is now being banked in form of gold, because in Dubai they always have laws around the money. The banks are a bit strict, but the gold is through a form of that underground thing that cannot also be traced. Is this the kind of item that is also there? Because we find those Emirates trips are always there. Um, the EK trips that we all know of are always there, and the private jets that are always living there. Is there an international organization that can be approached to put that um, at a halt?
I mean, so at the moment for Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe cannot do, as far as I know, direct transfers through the banking system, right? Which like other countries can. Banks have to work with an intermediary bank, which is one of the other reasons why we have so many banking charges because of, yeah, and why that is the case is because of things like this that Zimbabwe has failed to satisfy, um, that they are actually one, their banking systems and processes do safeguard against this type of clandestine activities around money laundering and stuff like this. So Zimbabwe, as far as I'm aware, at the moment, cannot do direct banking transfers. For that reason, that we have to use an intermediary bank. So again, you see that it's the suffering masses. We are the ones that then get hit by this because of the banking charges. They have to pass on those charges of that they have to pay to an intermediary bank um, to undertake such transactions. And then in terms of can these things be traced? I mean, it wouldn't take very much if you look at how easy it was for the gold mafia documentary. It's a very clumsy system of it's just that at the moment in Zimbabwe there's no appetite from the judicial or the justice system to actually do something about things like this, right? But would it be possible one day to trace and do all the, I'm pretty sure it would. I gave the example earlier this week, and we all know, we all watched The Lavish, or we read, or whether intentionally or by accident, we saw The Lavish birthday celebrations, which incidentally were being banded about as the launch of a wine or something like this. And really, these are some of the methods that traditionally have been used to launder money, right? So you have some kind of obscure good like shoes or wine or that or t-shirts, branded t-shirts. Like, we've seen different people that have their own self-branded t-shirts, and that they claim that apparently they shipped millions of them. And you're thinking to yourself, where are the people that are buying these t-shirts? Because I have never come across even a single person that has bought this t-shirt. I still don't know the name of the wine, by the way, that was being promoted. I have seen influencer comments. I haven't seen any wine connoisseur comments on it, as you would if you were serious about the drink. So these are all some of the methods that are used to get the money out of Zimbabwe, or even to get the money through Zimbabwe.
Right. No, thanks, Chennai. Thanks, Rajvir, for that. And you also have this when gold is physically taken, right, through the airports, through the private airports. I don't think those things are traceable, right? If it's Dubai or wherever they go, kana zvisina digital track when they can physically put whether bags of cash or bags of gold. I think those are the other things where they can just do without trace. But anyway, thanks, Chennai, for that. And Rajvir, can I go?
Can I just add, Titus? That's a
Yeah.
very good point, because one of the things that I discovered in terms of even gold is that what you will then see, right, is countries like Dubai, like China, will be like, oh, we do, our gold production is so high, but really, in Zimbabwe's gold production remains stagnant, or it's
Mhm.
because it's not being recorded in Zimbabwe. It's being recorded in as Dubai gold or Chinese gold or whatever, which, yeah.
It's a big problem. No, thanks for that. Can I go to Reynard?
Thanks, Kule.
Bo,
Muribo.
bo, bo. Should I say?
Mishe, angujedza. Teteve nyika. Thank you for coming. Hey, but munga pamunouya akatopedzisira manje munoziya patinozorara tetabatwa nestress.
Sorry.
Nyaya dzemari. Nyaya dzemari zvese zvinoperera kumari katete. Ndokwazvinoperera zvese. So now, okay, I want to look at the issue of the RBZ, because the RBZ is playing it seems like it's playing very many roles. But of which, at least, we can't actually divorce it from the Minister of Finance and even Fidelity. Somehow I don't know why actually you failed to mention that, because that's a nice clean money cleaning chain from businessmen up to whoever or whatever nefarious, what you call it, gangsters. Like what is happening now, the gangsters have been unleashed into South Africa. I don't know where they'll end up, but we have got an RBZ which is held by a party, yet in other countries, RBZs, they're autonomous, even though they've got shareholding. But in other countries now, there's a new shift whereby they want to own their own RBZs. I think even Traore owns his own RBZ, probably. So now, with our own situation, with all those linkages, this is going to be my first question. Are we not actually a cleaning house for crime? Since our RBZ is actually not owned or answerable to whoever, is Zimbabwe not now a crime country whereby we are cleaning money which is unaccountable for, which we don't know how it actually goes? Anybody comes and does whatever he pleases. Yes, gold can be traced. It's actually going, willy-nilly, and nobody's actually tracing it. Now, it will beg another second question to say, how much of this does the so-called people who actually said, okay, we sanctioned these people, but these people continue doing whatever they are doing? I would like to believe that, the CIA studies many economies. It does that. And what does their data show? And what does their data tell us when it comes to such things which are actually happening in Zimbabwe? We need to know that, because it's a crime scene. Billions of dollars are crossing the borders, and billions of dollars are actually buying cars, billions, but yet there is not even a health factor. When CIA studies the health scenario in Zimbabwe, what do they say? Where do they say the money is going? Then we tend to keep quiet again at the same time and say, okay, it's not actually, maybe in their sight, maybe they're trying to ignore it. But we know that there's a global shift which is already happening. It's there. Where are these people taking us and where are we going? Because digitization is coming. We can't actually, because right now Mnangagwas is just going to say, I mean, with Huawei, 5G technology. And some international chief executives of $1 trillion company organizations, they say they emulate the system of China in order to regulate economies and money and people. So we need to know some of those things to say. These things, we are seeing them happening outside there. They are happening also in Africa. We have had the president who has said now there's a new world order is going to be aligning with some certain nefarious forces. It's happening. Thank you for that one. I'll leave that one. Now let's look at another thing. I mean, the role of CZI and the ZNCC, Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, when it comes to the playing business, I have seen them actually crying to say, I mean, they are not actually, they're at the end of the flag. Yet we are seeing visits to China by a few individuals, as you are saying, they're not banking the money in the country. Yet the ones who are actually doing business in Zimbabwe and banking the money in the country are receiving the So what are these people saying and what is it, I mean, that is expected of us as citizens, and what do they expect from us who are actually free within these diaspora communities to ensure that we can exert pressure in order to make sure that this dynasty actually is going to end? Because it's not saving anybody by the end of the day. And then I just want to comment on Angujedza's corporate social responsibility. Angujedza's social corporate responsibility. I remember last time when I was reading something when BlackRock was formed now, because he is the biggest lender to anybody, to everybody in the world. They all go and borrow money from that. And now that company comes with some corporate social responsibilities. And at one time, it was actually gunning for this climate change and stuff like that. And then now we are seeing that, I mean, it seems like it has changed the stance. Countries actually detect, I mean, what they want on their corporate social responsibility on the international scene to say, okay, if you want to invest in my country, okay, we are looking forward to this is going to be like that. And then there are also tax incentives which come with that, especially if you are a local business person. But the social corporate responsibility that we have seen in Zimbabwe is that of actually giving cars to undeserving people, while listed things on a grassroots level, which when people who are supposed to benefit, they are actually failing to benefit out of that.
All right.
Then, okay, the issue of debt, this one now is the big one now. Let's talk about that, the issue of debt. Why I'm actually going to be passionate about this one? Because debt can actually make you be owned. If you even remember a long time ago, if you read maybe some histories of America when it comes to things like debt, people used to be arrested and be put in jails because, I mean, you owe me and Gujedza. Don't know good report. I moenda kuwa magistrate. Moenda munoshanda kujereko. Or you can be possessed. You can be enslaved using debt. We've got a situation. I usually like to say this situation of ESCOM and what is happening in South Africa now currently, where ESCOM actually has gone into serious debt, and even electricity actually carries these days. Everybody is complaining. Now, ESCOM being only owing so much money, it was to the World Bank, to the Chinese, and I don't know, to other countries probably. It has come to a point.
Sorry, guys. Can we have more questions than commentaries, because we don't have much time. Right now we are
Okay.
right now we've got only 40 minutes
But
to go.
What I wanted to say was, I mean, debt, ESCOM is now, the debt has been bought and it's only close to trillions. And now debt can actually be bought. And then what is our position in clearing this debt as far as it's concerned? Zimbabwe's debt seems to be way too high compared to our GDP. Thank you. Let me leave it at that. Then maybe we'll have a conversation.
Right. Okay. Over to you, Shania.
So, what is the actual question, Uncle Jed?
No, I wanted to ask you, okay, for instance, when I see Zeta in
Okay. That one I can answer that very quickly. So, I mean, I can't.
Then ne-RBZ autonomy yedu kuti zviri kuti affect how much to what levels.
Okay. RBZ
Yeah.
RBZ, yeah, that is the mafia bank. Like, it just needs to be shut down. We just need to shut
What
that
about the
thing
Minister of
down
Finance?
and throw away the keys. There is it's a mafia bank. It's at the center of everything that is wrong with the economics of how Zimbabwe is being run for the last however many years. It really should be just closed, right? We need to start again and to define properly the role of a central bank that sticks to the brief. You're right to say that, it does not have the autonomy. You see, I was here, I gave a presentation last time after the monetary policy statement. Just one example, like, if you read the MPS today, it will tell you that the RBZ has a targeted loan facility that it gives to the productive sector. Like, as what? It's not a retail bank. Why is the Reserve Bank taking money from retail banks in the name of reserves, taking retention from private companies, and then lending it out to whomever it likes? Because the criteria is not even clear. Kuti anopiwa mari Reserve Bank wacho ndiani? We don't even know. Why? It's not a retail bank. Why is it undertaking those activities? You don't even need to do any big analysis to know that the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe really ought to be shut down. It is a lost cause. All it serves to do is to promote the cartel and the mafia that is running Zimbabwe. I cannot say one good thing about the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, to be honest. And then the other thing you were asking about, the role of institutions like the ZNCC. So I actually happened to be, I was invited to be part of one of the ZNCC committees. Now, I'll tell you that the analysis, the engagement, the undertake is sound, I haven't said through any conversation or whatever that I've thought, oh, these guys are not genuine. They are genuinely interested as professionals in commenting and making, I guess, sound suggestions for the economy. But there is no intention on the part of policymakers to take on any good ideas to actually make things change for the better in Zimbabwe. They've no intention to do. There's no intentions to do that. And really also, these sort of organizations, yes, they are representative organizations, but we have other institutions that, if those institutions actually did what they were set up to do, such as the corruption commission, the consumer, what is it called, the one that's meant to look after consumers, that you even though the taxpayer is paying for the existence of these institutions, they are failing us. They are not performing their duties. I don't even know what is the point of the corruption commission, really. So, yeah, these institutions exist, but the ecosystem in which they operate in, it does not deliver benefit for the people of Zimbabwe.
Right. Thank you very much. Can we have Best to come in? Best, please come in with your question. We've got 35 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, to go through this Q&A portion. But we're not going to use up all the whole, 35 minutes, because there's something that Chennai needs to, to be presenting on. So I'll give you the last 15 minutes. So it means this portion, we have to end it at 8:45. So whoever is coming through, please, just questions. And
Yes, thank
yeah,
you, thank you, Uncle Jed and Titus Moff. I don't. I got no presentation, but I got no two questions. The question, the other thing before I go to my question is, I recall Mugabe's daughter. A How much farms does she own? I think it's in public domain now, whereby it went through the courts, and you find out that she had more than 20 plus farms. So, and then we don't know Chatunga, how many farms does he got, and the other boys, or and even Gabi or Grace Gucci, we don't know. Now, coming back to the question now here is, how much land does ED owns? How many farms does he got? How many farms does his siblings got? Those twins, his nieces, uncles, and so forth. And then you're looking at the title deeds. So if you are giving these people title deeds, then that means so they will own this title this title to those farms, whereby a lot of people in Zimbabwe doesn't have even a 1 acre or 2 acre. And then how the process is it being done fairly, or is being done in a what you call clandestine one way? Uh, my last question is this title deeds of offer like Tagore is spearheading gonna be reversed in future? I thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Chennai, if you can take the mic, please.
So, in terms of the future, I think this is where some of this kind of behavior that we're seeing, where it comes from, right? When I look at these guys and with all the wealth they've amassed, I do not see people that are at peace, right? And this is where we are the ones that actually we underestimate. They are clear on the fact that if the people of Zimbabwe really want everything back, they can get everything back. And so to try and avoid that happening is when we see all these power dynamics, whether it's is Chiwenga then maybe saying he wants to be president, or Tagwire, or whomever, or Holy Ten. um they what makes them panic, or even Mnangagwa himself, is the fact that they are they don't have the security that they would like to have. It's just that isusu zvedu hatisati tatanga sevanhu, as a people, we are maybe just not there yet, and the time will come. And I think this is what makes them panic, and that desperation to for power, that desperation to stay, to cling on to the power. I believe it's at this point really trying to protect themselves and to protect their self-interest and their family's self-interest, because they know that if the people truly decide to make a reclaim on what belongs to them, then it's game over.
Right. So on the aspect, I think on the aspect of farm ownership, so it can easily be concluded that once these guys get out of power, if we do like what happened, or somehow they get it out of power, we're going to find that even in joining in a farm.
I mean, it will be very interesting to find what it is that these guys, there's the whole skeletons in the closet. But I have to say that a lot of the information that we need to start is tangira, we kind of, people have an idea. Even their properties that they bought just before the elections in 2023, they bought properties in South Africa. They've done, these things are known. We know about these things. It's a matter of, I think, on the part of the people, just having really the willpower. And yeah, it's just us getting our act together and actually saying, right, we're not even going to, because I think what they want is I think, is for us to start saying we come at you with guns and what have you, because they have loads of those. What they don't want and what they're betting on is us actually doing the thing and taking them legally, taking them, in other ways, and making a claim and reparating our what we are owed by these people. And that's not impossible. There are so many ways that this can be achieved, right? And I say this not just as somebody who's just saying, oh, it's possible. Like, it's very possible. And they know it probably more than we do, because
Right.
otherwise, I mean, look at, for example, right? You look at somebody, a businessman like Strive Masiwa, right? Strive is innovating, he's enjoying his wealth. He is, he lives a peaceful life as somebody who's made a lot of money, right? And looking at new business ventures. You don't see him making slogans and, like, I honestly look at Agree and I think, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing and why? And this is because, he knows that he's wearing borrowed clothes. It's a matter of time.
Right. Anyway, thank you very much. Right. Uh, Tozara Champion, do you want to come through with your question, and then Mofu Mogadzilla any question yenyu?
Uh, kuri sei naye Mukwasha? Kuri sei naye
Mutemuri
Mukoma?
say?
Kuri sei naye Mukoma Titus? Handambonzwa hangu pachibatwa, because I did not listen that much, but I heard a bit of I think it was about title deeds, farming and whatsoever. I don't know how the depth of the presentation looks like, but I would want to say, have you ever looked into things that are now locking A1 farm and A2 farmers, especially not in terms of dealing with title deeds, but in dealing with the finance providers that are milking, or let me say they are just like reducing the income, no, not the income, but the proceeds of farmers. How would you explain it, especially now? Because look, we do have got farmers who are complaining to say, you know what, we have been locked in a contract of contract farming, and this is not saving us. It's actually impoverishing us, and also it seems as if we are not benefiting anything. That's what I can say. The question will be, if you looked into that area in an extent that you can be able to point 1, 2, 3 in terms of why these farmers are complaining to say, we are now working for nothing, we are enslaved. But when we carried out land reform program, we thought it was going to enrich, it was going to be fairer, it was going to be something good that is going to benefit all of us. I don't, so let me end there and say that's what I am maybe trying to ask. I don't know how deep the presentation was, because I did not have much time to listen. Maybe I'll listen later to the recordings, or for the recordings and
Right.
everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chennai, do you want to respond, to that?
I didn't really hear the question. I heard the comments, but
Tezara, do you want to repeat,
sorry.
the area that you are inquiring on?
Okay, I'm saying, have you looked into the issue of impoverishment of farmers by the contractors that are providing contract farming to A1 and A2 farmers, especially some people who are situated in Rusape and Rusape and Makoni, who are complaining to say, you know what, we have been locked in these contract farms and we are not benefiting anything. Because I just when I tuned in, I think maybe it was just like 3 minutes. I heard you talking about farming, a bit of it. So I'm just saying, have you ever looked into it, and also maybe coming up with maybe a list of companies that are impoverishing our farmers, and this is happening with the help of the cartels and so forth. Let me end there. Thank you.
Right.
Okay, so I guess, are you saying whether
I guess
farmers?
it's saying that, like, the farmers who are existing now are under some contract of some sort. And whilst, they are in these contracts, there's no benefit that is accruing, to them. So is it an area that you have considered to actually understand why these farmers, instead of them harvesting a profit, instead of them gaining a profit, they are worse off as a result of the arrangement that they are currently in this contract farming arrangement.
Okay, so do you mean, for example, like the wheat farmers that they can only sell their produce? Is it to the grain marketing board or whatever? Do you mean, or is it the yeah? Is that what you mean?
Mhm.
Is it those types of contracts? Is that
Yeah,
what you mean?
I guess that is yeah. Ndizo zvakatezvara.
Yeah, not only the grain producers or grain
No, I was
farmers.
just as an
Remember,
example. Yeah.
yeah, that grain farmers and as well as tobacco farmers. I think you heard that tobacco has been earning 1 billion or so, according to the regime and the Herald and so forth. They were saying like that, but now the A1 farmers who are there, they are complaining that this is not working for us, right? Let me just end there.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, because we are not really thriving, right? If you look at the fact that the dependence that we have on the agriculture sector, and if you try and see, even just by looking, the impact that it's actually had on the farmers, say from just a few blueberry farmers or whatever, there's not much difference in the way of income mobility. And it can come down to in terms of the contract farmers, there are delays that they face in getting paid. Sometimes they're paid in local currency, but their raw materials are in, they have to use foreign currency to get the fertilizers, to get to get the fuel that they need or whatever. So it's a very difficult environment to operate in. Um, for all intents and purposes. And I think there was there's been all sorts of things happening where was it some farmers were now finding that it's actually better to sell in Zambia, because then you get your money straight away than you would if you were selling to the state-owned institution. And it comes back to my first point of one of the three factors that you will see in Zimbabwe is a heavy hand of the state. So the fact that a lot of these contracts are with state-owned institutions that in themselves, they do not even have the money to be paying farmers, and yet they are the only customer that the farmer is allowed to deal with, right? And then again, the other thing that we saw, particularly in times that has had an impact on our food security, is where tobacco. I think there's a time we had a lot of tobacco contract farming that was coming in from, even from external farmers, external customers such as Chinese contractors or whatever. And we actually found that because there was a kind of guarantee that came with tobacco farming, that instead of farming, like grains that we need to be food secure, there's a preference for tobacco contract farming, and then the impact that that has. And I think the agriculturalists can probably speak more to this, but the impact that that has on that particular farm or soil, once you start preparing for tobacco and you're farming tobacco, it may mean that, even for the next few seasons, the only thing you can farm there is tobacco, which has had a negative impact on on us in terms of food security as well. So it really is all a bit of a mess. There's no proper considered strategy when it comes even to our agriculture sector.
Right. Thank you very much, for that. The animal, please come through. Morpheum corner, are you there? Right. Okay. I think Chennai, I'll give you, the opportunity to give us the presentation on the last aspect that we spoke about, the idea of reforms, etc. What is it that you have in store for us, in terms of what needs to be done? Because this question has been raised by people during this space to say, okay, we've got this going on, we've got this going on, we've got this going on. Are there any mechanisms in place that can be utilized to provide safeguards or to challenge some of the things that are going on, etc? So I think in response to those questions that people were asking, what is it that can be done? And then I think we can now delve into this aspect of this call to action, the call for reforms, and to what activities or initiatives that are in existence out there, or what is being done to make sure that at least there is some kind of action that is coming from citizens to challenge all these things that are happening in Zimbabwe.
All right, cool. So, like I said earlier, and I said right at the start, right, that I've been working as part of Zim for All Foundation. We have done some of you may have encountered some of the activities we've done in the past, some of the advocacy that we've done for Zimbabwe, and engaging, different institutions, different governments, highlighting, even if it's things like, why is this entity being allowed to come into Zimbabwe and to deal with Zimbabwe and to sign corrupt contracts, but we now need to do a bit more than just lobbying and advocacy, because, like I said, there are opportunities. And I have spent some time over the last couple of months, myself and the board, we have spent some time speaking with some, shall we say, international agencies, and really trying to find and present cases to them to say, is this something we can do something about? What about this one? What about this one? What about this one? And we have come up with a few that we really strongly believe that it's a good caseload, that there's a lot of activity that can happen around it. And why is this important, right? It's important because we have to move to some kind of reform, and we cannot reform if we are not ready to address the problem. We just have to address the problem and tackle it whichever which way. And we need to do it in a way that us as citizens, we've become intentional about it, right? We want to do it in a way where we are clear on what we are trying to achieve. We are clear on how we are trying to achieve it, and we are all in it together. Because what I find often happens is, like, I think and I think, Titus, you will, I can't remember whether I tried to do this with you or it was somebody else, where I've said before to people, like, if you want to support, like, send me an email, send me a message. And, like, I think we got about 6 people responded, right? And it was like, okay, this is we somehow expected a bit more. Like, guys, let's stay angry, but let's be angry enough to be moved to action, because it's not a hopeless situation. Do you know? And it's unfortunate that it's only us that sees our situation as hopeless. The people that are committing the crimes, they know what can happen. That's why they continue to try, whether it's to try and silence dissent, arresting people. They are so busy every day. It's another you we They are doing something to try and silence us and stop us from doing something together. But because they know that our situation is not hopeless, it's only unfortunately looking like it's hopeless to us. So what we've decided to do, I'm going to pin here an email address, and as well as a link for people to sign up. If you can sign up, and we can then invite you to communicate with you what our next steps are. There's no point trying to do something that's, and make a big announcement here now on this platform, when some of the people here are not necessarily interested in in finding out, nor are they interested in supporting. So that is my call to you. And then the other thing is, also don't hesitate to, to send through the ideas. What do you think? What do you want to see happen? I mean, what we've done so far is we're speaking even with a law firm that can help us, where, like I heard Uncle Jed just now saying, there's an institution there, or there's a group of people that want to do something about diaspora vote. There'll be another group of people that have also maybe come together for a specific cause. But if, say, for instance, we manage to raise a certain amount of money, we would then be engaging with those lawyers, so that if somebody can prove that what they want to do is aligned with the things that we've raised money for, then potentially, they can draw down on that, and we are able to do. Because essentially, if you want to do anything, you want to take somebody to court, you need to pay some lawyers. You want to, whatever it is that you're trying to do, that is in the aspect of trying to get us across the line, and to really even just do one or two things to show ukuthi isusu sema-citizens ka tasvika pakuti now we are tired, we really really want to do something about this. I believe that we can do. And like I said, even some of these companies, like, I was really surprised. Like, I had to read it like 10 times. Like, tiri kunetsana nenyaya yegeopomona, and and my former my former friend who is involved in that. But meanwhile, the other half of it is a company like that is here in Europe. I mean, come on, like, we can easily do something about that, right? Because there exists in a country that is a democratic country, where we can actually do something. Chero takada kunomira pamberi pemaoffice avo wherever they are, tikati nhasi hapana anoenda kumba. We are able to do that. No one is going to put us in jail, like we would get that, like we would happen if we were trying to do the same thing in Zimbabwe. So I'm trying to say, like, we need to really come together and think outside the box, because our situation is definitely not as hopeless as we would like to think so ourselves. I don't know, Uncle Jed, pane zvandasiyirira from what we discussed.
No, 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 I think that is, yeah, that is basically it. Kutizo, those that are willing to be part and parcel of this, they respond to the to the invite, and then it is from that invite that then people can then get to understand or get to know what it is that is needs to be done, and what people can do. So it's just fitting well with the aspect of active citizenship, and it is up to you guys to come through, see what is on offer, see what is being proposed, get to understand. Like she's spoken about engaging a law firm, and that some of these aspects, one thing, Shania, that I need to excuse me, I need to make clear right now is we are not asking for money here.
No, 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 we are not. What we need to do is is the first step is for people to reach out. Like I will post an email
Yes.
address here. If you can just send me, reach out with your email with your email if you'd like for us to contact you to keep you informed of what is happening and how you can help, right? So, and there are many ways that we can come together. It's not just Ngoti, let's
Mhm.
come. I think there's something even that we were trying to figure out how to do earlier, like, maybe we need a sign up sheet. How do we get people? We just need someone who can help us create a sign up sheet, right? That can be something that you can help us with. It can be, we need to publish a list of companies here in the UK or in Europe that are participating in these deals, outside of due diligence or whatever. Let's do it. If we want to make organize protest on certain situations and stuff. There's so many things that we can really do. And yeah, so the first step is please